I'd like to start the meeting, if I may.
Yes.
It's 7:04.
Okay.
And I don't need a roll call. I can see it. Mike, Kathy, and no, I did provide the minutes from our last meeting, but I didn't send them to you until late. So we can table that if you want until vote on it the next meeting, so you have time to go at it. It was a lot of minutes. So, but there are parts of it that I'd like to go over with you now because of what actually happened in the meantime.
Okay.
Minutes. Tell me I didn't print that out. Well, when I got my printer all done, all fixed, I managed to print out the minutes.
You did.
Minutes, June 12th. There it is. All right. Exactly. 3. All right. So we got on that meeting toward the end, we voted to apply for a grant, right? And as part of the minutes, I said that, and part of the meeting, I said that I would check with MRPC to make sure that, they could handle it because we have a temporary town administrator. And really the answer was no, they couldn't handle it because that whole grant was really to be initiated from here. It's like the grant administrator was supposed to put together, with the facilities department, these are the things we would like to do. And I didn't have any facility to help me, accomplish that. Besides that, I did when I sent prior to Eric's leaving, I sent to his attention and to our liaison, and they Teresa asked Eric, what does he think? And he came back with, these are great for when we have a grant administrator. And, there was another function that I guess they were planning to do along with grant administrator. But that hire never happened. So when we voted on this, I thought that there was a possibility that we could work this out with MRPC. But it's not going to work. There's just no way to put it together and maintain it without someone separate from us to really spend probably 10 hours just getting to the list of stuff to do together, and then sending it in a format that had how we were going to accomplish the work. Who it actually asked who was going to do the work. So it's like you didn't have an opportunity to even ask Rise if they could do it. It was a strange thing. So I am advising the committee now as part of our meeting during reading of the minutes, which we'll get to next time actually, that never happened. And I guess I'll have to, I don't know if I have to have a vote to say we're not going to do it or what, but I've explained what happened. And you can go over the minutes because there's 3 pages of minutes and it's too much to try to do right here now.
Okay.
Green community status discussion. Boy, this is a disgusting one to get into right now. before the summer break, I knew they were working on getting into the library and stuff, and during the summer break, Frank Davies, the representative from Rise, told me via text that, he thought they were finishing it, and then they may be able to send me a copy of the report. Oh, great. Well, didn't get it for a month, so I asked him back at the beginning of the month, and then a week later again, was it possible for us to get a copy? How are things going? What's happened? And he told me they hadn't finished the report, and then a day later they had finished the report, and they sent me a copy, which I think you guys have received.
Yeah.
It is quite detailed and technical. I am pleased with the attention they paid to all the details there. I'm not really qualified to gauge the quality of the report, but it looks pretty detailed to me. And we would have to engage Rob Beauchamp to determine if it is actually good stuff that he can execute. But the grant opportunity coming up, Frank says that there were some energy control measures that were not complete, and he thought that Unitil wouldn't clear this project until they were done. And I said, what ECMs are there? He mentioned the rebate, and I know we have a separate contract for rebatable stuff for the lights on the public buildings, and we in town contributed some money towards that. But I said, what additional stuff you got? And it turns out that there's one of these, if you read the details of the report, someplace around page 32, 35, there appears a cooling system at the senior center that could use one of those, what do they call it? It's a mechanical, they do something to improve the controls to reduce the energy consumption. And it could cost like 15 grand. And he said that he's already checked. He said that when I asked him again about it, I double checked, because I said, you just mentioned that, you may not finish in time. What the heck is that? And he responded by saying, yep, we're not going to finish in time because we've got to do this other stuff. I can't believe it. I mean, I have a sense, I thought that we had given him that sense of urgency, I was looking for a quote so that we could bid this year. I expected us to be able to do it. Then he sends to me a copy of a contract for that work that he has to have signed by Eric Slagle, or I guess Ross Perry now. But the contract date is last spring. Is a year ago, more than a year ago, 2 years ago.
God.
Look at the dates. Is this stuff they missed, they didn't do, that they should have done? I don't know. Was it on a previous contract and they didn't actually do it? Now, I don't know. All right, so I don't want to take or distract from our main purpose at this meeting, which is the energy goal discussion, but it's got to be looked at further. And I had it in mind, might as well bring it up now, to write to Rob Beauchamp to invite him to a meeting. And I would like to have 3 specific questions, for him. Maybe you guys have others, but I wanted to get his opinion on Rise Engineering's performance, first of all. Just, there's the technical side and there's the, the administrative side. How are they to deal with? Because Rob was complimented by Frank on his availability and helping him get into buildings and stuff. That was good. I'd like to get his opinion on the retro commission report. Was it helpful? Will we execute? what about this ECM? Let's find a little more information on that. And then the Townsend buildings for electrification in our future. Do get around to get a quote in the fall. There'll probably be some electrification on that, but we should direct, Frank, which buildings are most likely. It doesn't mean that we're going to. It means that he's going to develop a detailed quote for a couple of buildings that we request. And it doesn't say that we're going to do it. It says that we want to consider it, get a complete consideration in front of us for the spring. And maybe either he knows of older equipment that's in need of replacement anyway, or it's inefficient, or maybe he knows of a cooling requirement. They can't get out of the heating equipment now. So, and you can get that out of heat pumps. So that was, you guys think that's a good idea to get him over here? All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Now, Jessica. Oh, the MG band. I'm going to skip over that one. The non-green communities grant program LEDs are not complete, but there's no time schedule on top of us to complete that. But he hasn't apparently done. He says if they had told me they were working on the Spalding school. I mean, we heard it. Had text email saying they're trying to get into the Spalding school and planning to do it during, it was best in the spring. But apparently there's still some work to be done. No, not the school. Well, that's not the school. That's the, that would be community buildings, not the school. So there's apparently some work that he still needs to do on those. So, not done. Now, getting back to the energy goals, the master plan, Jessica Consalvo was at a meeting upstairs, couldn't join us today. I told her that, it's early for us to be joining us anyway, so maybe to tell us what she could do for us, versus what we do ourselves. That's the difference. But she had suggestions on how to proceed and sent us all a copy of the master plan. This meeting, I wanted to just review the task, plan our approach, and attempt to commit to a timely response request. I don't think we're going to finish anything today. I think we're going to start something. Hopefully. Now, Jessica sent us all a copy of the master plan. And I didn't have a printer till today, so I printed out a bunch of stuff, but I didn't print the whole thing because it's like 100 and some odd 300.
Yeah, it's outrageous. Yeah.
I have it on my computer.
I have it on my computer too, but I did, for purposes of marking up and being able to do that here, I did make an extra member copy. There's two things that I made copies of. One is this section, which is the climate mitigation plan. They call it climate adaptation plan. They kind of mix up adaptation and mitigation here, but there's mentions for energy on page 24, 35, and 52 to 53 that we could edit. That's that one. I also, the other place where energy is strongly mentioned is on the implementation plan, which pages pages 116 through 118, well actually 122, but the energy is mentioned on 117 and 118. So also for purposes of marking up, if you wanted to do that. I got other copies here, Kath, but they're no good for you.
Yeah.
All right, so I've made a couple of notes having read this thing, and well, one of the things I did is I went through. I put the file, which opens with as a PDF, and I searched on the words energy, electricity, natural gas, gasoline, diesel, power, electrical, lights, and the like, and tried to find all the instances where we are mentioned, where we come up. And I haven't necessarily got all of them yet, but the ones that I wanted to call your attention to are on, first of all, page 24.
Well, you gave me.
Yeah, I didn't give you that. This was one that I found late in the game. Well, page 24, if you find it on your computer there, it's just the very bottom of that page, 24. It just begins to mention energy a little bit. It says, to preserve these facilities and prolong their use, Townsend needs to develop and fund a maintenance and preservation plan that extends beyond routine actions to include projects for capital-related expenses such as roofs, heating and cooling, which is the electricity, and related projects. But that's a minor one. I don't need to really focus that on too much, but that came up, energy. And then the next significant one will be on page 32. Do you have a copy of that to look at, Cal?
I'm trying to pull it up right now.
32. What I gave you copies of starts on page 29, because, well, at the just above the drawing, the map 3, watersheds and subbasins, on page 29, just above that map, it says, to ensure redundancy and availability of water during electrical outages, generators are needed at cross. This is the water department, but it's an electrical accommodation for them that they're looking for as part of their plan. Next was page 35, and this is where we really might begin doing some of our own editing. Water department is first, and then
Mhm.
32 is where the climate adaptation plan begins. Now this is a place where I think, from my way of thinking, I haven't pulled the whole thing together in my head yet, but it says this is regarding the first paragraph has to do with the habitat and town to protect the resources. And the next paragraph after that, it has to do with climate change. This is where we start to get really seriously involved. Let me just summarize what I see here. There's a lot of good stuff here, but the whole approach, attitude, tone, if you will, of this is, we're a little town. There's nothing we can do about global warming. So, we'll watch out for this or that and the other thing. And where I think is more appropriate is you could acknowledge that we're a little town. I mean, something like I look one down. Say, well, it's not possible to stop climate change quickly. It is possible to slow its rate of change and its extent by reducing human emissions of heat-trapping gases and soot or whatever. According to scientists around the world, consequences of climate change, the worst consequences of climate change, to avoid the worst consequences of climate change, we need to reach net zero carbon emissions by 2050 or sooner. There's hundreds of ways of saying this, but I think what I'd like to try to get through here is that we have been doing this for years, and later on, I think Jessica's already put in here something like that. We've already made substantial progress, but I think we ought to try to put some numbers to that. I said that before, but here we are. we're gonna put something down to, it's not just what we spent, but something about what we saved. And all they gotta do really is get the first year and the last year where we have records. And it's too bad it sucked because we had a lot of snow, 43, right? And said that this is the approximate savings that we are achieving annually, you know. And then say we'd like to continue with, did you see the difference? Climate change. I think what we have is a reaction to minimize the impact of conditions we can't really control. And the other one is join most nations in mass and most most nations and other communities in mass to take actions that will reduce our carbon emissions, potentially reduce our cost of energy as well. So there's lots of ways to say it, but there's a somewhat substantial difference between what I'm trying to drive this to get energy included, because we're not adapting to climate change. We might be mitigating our contribution to climate change.
Yeah, it's true.
But we're not mitigating climate change or even adapting to it. So there's another, I have a problem with the terms mitigation and adaptation in these contexts. And even in here, they mix it up somewhat. You got one place where she says, adaptation, and in the next paragraph she says mitigate. So I think that's a place where we could make adjustments. I don't know how much I started to write this. I actually had a thing when I wrote it, and I came to a point where I said, you know what, I need Michael. I'm not the writer, so I just scrapped it. And then I went back and I tried to do it as an outline. This is what this is and this. So this is one part. This climate adaptation, section. And within that, after that, those paragraphs on page 52 and 53 is where there's some recognition that we've already, taking. Those 52 and 53 is another significant part that we've got to try to edit a little bit where we are concerned. 52, the Energy Committee is just in their planning stage to establish a master plan for the town. Their role is advisory services and oversight of our town green communities. Members help reduce town the energy cost and carbon footprint by implementing clean energy projects in town and school buildings. I don't have any problem with what that says, but it doesn't really enlighten people enough about what it is that we do. And energy efficient lights, and the town should maintain and support energy committee. I think I've got to do a better job of communicating to people that we lose by not having a grant administrator. I believe it's cost the town 15 grand last year, and now I can't apply for a grant because I can't manage it. I mean, I was leaning on Eric to manage these grants. That's what it comes down to. Now we've got to temp. I don't even know if Ross is here every day. Is he here every day, or does he just show up every day? All right. So the two different parts. One is the what do you call it? The adaptation and mitigation section, which I don't like the names. And the other is the implementation section, where they have actually used terminology that sounds a bit like some of our goals. So our goals are primarily action oriented, implementation, not. So I think we ought to try to come up with I gave you the implementation sheet. Yeah. We've got to come up with an outline of what it is we'd like to have, this part of our representation in the Van say. I have to use the bathroom. Is one around the corner here? On this floor, we're
Can't
gonna go up.
remember.
Have to go up.
You might have.
What are we doing? What's going on, Mike?
I think, so we're looking at,
The adaptation, yeah.
you have the, this master plan, it's page 116,
Page 116 we're on now?
section called implementation. And yeah, Ron was just.
All right, let me,
where
it's
he
obviously still on 52 and 53.
Yeah. So I don't know. I guess this, I haven't read all this, but I can do that. And, just don't know. Yeah, we'll have to see which parts of this we could potentially improve. It looks like there's basically a big table of issues to focus on. Some of them are, we're the ones at least collaborating. We collaborate.
Okay.
Yeah. Mike, you've gotten the gist that I'm hoping you can help with the writing.
Yes.
What do you need from us to do that? I mean, things that we'd like to see included, and we'll provide some of that if necessary. I think the implementation part of it, putting things in slots, is something that I can handle. Maybe rewording some of the things she had. Main things to me are that although we don't expect to change the climate by what we do here in Townsend, we are participating in a global effort to minimize risk for our kids. And
Yeah, I mean, the section that's called climate adaptation recommendations actually is, most of that is, it really looks more like energy conservation and mitigation of climate. So there may be an issue with wording.
Yeah.
It's funny, like, obviously we probably all agree that encouraging solar and wind power is not going to focus because it's not a green community funded thing.
Yeah, not everything is green communities funded.
Right.
That we can't leave people with the impression that everything gets paid for by the green community.
Right.
You know the goals and you know how to express them. So it's kind of what we're looking for.
So with you thinking maybe incorporate some of the goals we've worked on into this part of it, possibly other parts, but this part of
I'd say we try to fit the goals into parts that exist in where things or places don't exist for our goals, they would go probably into text.
Yeah.
But you know, we could clearly identify them because Jessica will probably come to the next meeting. Unless you don't want her to, because we'll still be at a point where we're, you know, editing. I don't see that happening in one meeting either. Okay, so her involvement, because she'll probably take whatever it is we do and try to fit it in herself.
So if I remember, the idea was that she was asking if we come up with ideas on how to meld our, you know, those goals into this.
Right, right. And I saw enough difference so that there wasn't just a copy and paste deal. Where my issue starts where they say they come out and say there are two things that we can, you know, two paths we can follow, and I don't the two on page 32, two parallel paths minimize the impacts of climate change. So we're not trying to, the Energy Committee has nothing to do with the impacts of climate change. We're trying to reduce the production of climate change.
Right, reduce our
So
contribution.
that's,
yeah, so this truly is talking about adaptation.
Yeah.
Although that other section is more.
oh, you know, something else that I noticed recently. The Massachusetts goal has apparently changed.
Oh yeah.
The year. They're trying for 30, well, see, too pathetic. It used to be 30% by 2030. It's 33% now.
Oh.
So, you know, even that kind of stuff, which isn't here, and I don't know how we fit it in. At some point, I guess you just say it. The preamble, whatever you call it, to our energy goals, the introduction, does okay. You know, what you wrote there does what we wrote there does, you know, kind of do that. Brings our orientation. This is where the direction we're headed, but we'll have to be presented something other than as a introduction. It was part of the. She thought that we could just copy and paste part of that goal, the preamble, whatever you call it. I don't know what it's called. The introduction, I think it's called on the page of the of our plan. Yeah, the introduction says what we wrote was, so since 2010, towns have participated in the Massachusetts Department of Energy's, you know, that whole paragraph. It has also trimmed our town's climate changing emissions by about 17% since it'd be great to put, and save Townsend at this point $100,000 annually. I would like to be able to say that, but I can't because no one's giving me the numbers. I have to produce it myself. I didn't see anything. So, Mike, even if you don't actually pen paragraphs, if you could, if you could, that would be great. But if you, at this point, write down the sequence of things that you'd like to include, and may include some of the stuff she has, may include some of the stuff that's not there from our goals or whatever it is that you can think of. But if you were to write it out, we could look at it like that and break it down into its parts, or you can, if you're willing, prepare the outline. And that outline may help indicate where I can skip some of the goals.
Okay. I can.
If you need to talk to me, if it's all right with you, Kathy, is it all right if you consult with me along the way? Because I can't talk about.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And so if you have something in mind, but you don't know if it, and you want to check with me, yeah, but you don't have to check with me for anything. All right. Yeah, that is good. Now I'll try to get some numbers going. I know I've said that before, but if I'm dedicated to that, I will do it.
So what is going in the master plan for us?
Again, please.
What's going into the master plan for us, for the energy committee? I didn't see that any of them really fit,
Here. Oh, she's asking what's going into this from the energy committee. Well, I guess that's kind of what we're tasked with recommending, or coming up with ways to put energy related goals into this. There are some mentions of it.
There's already been some attempt to put energy into this plan, but it's known that it doesn't really match up well with the actual goals that we ended up with. It's just little pieces that have been stuck in there. Yeah. So we're supposed to clean it up, and what she'd asked to do is try to fit what we have into what she's already done. And it doesn't work because what the current master plan presents as the Townsend Energy Committee's work is actually presented as what happens after. How do you respond to climate change? Not how do you reduce your contribution to climate change. So yeah. So in the future we don't have to. So that's the difference. We have been doing something about it for 10 years. This is what the current plan says, is that we're a little town. There's nothing we can do about it. However, we can react to it in certain ways. And that's a total change. So it's a much more of a change than Jessica had anticipated.
Yeah.
Right? And that's why we're talking about, I'm not sure whether it becomes the Energy Committee section of the plan or whether I don't really think it fits into this mitigation and adaptation terminology. What we do doesn't fit.
No, and that's why I was getting confused.
That and save money and reduce our expenses. I joined this committee because my tax bill went up. That's That's what made me say, I've got to find something I can do about this. And this is where I ended up, but I'm glad I did. I think we are doing something about it.
Yeah.
And doing something about the climate as well.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's what we're trying to do. And I'm gonna work with the MEI to try to produce some reasonably certain amount of savings, to say in dollars and cents, this is what we think we're saving. I mean, once the thing is set up, I mean, I'm gonna have to relearn some features in Excel that I have not used recently, so.
Mhm.
But in MEI, they have every invoice paid on every meter, every gas tank, since we started. And the data, it looks like it's complete. I haven't really run the incomplete data test yet, but that's one of the things you do. They've got in MEI, they have a program where you use to test and look for incomplete data, which I found that before on my own, just by when you download the data to a spreadsheet, you get every meter, every month for the whole period, and in order to and the gas and oil, diesel is all separate, but you got to mix it around so that you come up with a total number of gallons for the town, and or the total kilowatt hours or whatever, and see how it looks now versus then. And then you can apply what we were paying for gas or oil or whatever back then, and what we're paying now, or you could just use a standard rate. But the point is that we should have reduced gallons, and we should have reduced kilowatt hours, and we should have reduced, therms to some point. It'll make it obvious that there's savings. Whatever values you choose. I mean, at some point we find a value, you apply the same value to both, and relative value, you say, if that previous level of consumption was going on today, at today's price, we would be paying many more thousands of dollars for our fuel than we are because we took action. I think that's where it comes up. And that just becomes one little teeny thing, but it gets people's attention. If it's $100,000 or whatever, I would get my attention. All right. I had these going up there. They're all good. All right, so I think we're almost done. That does that. Topics not reasonably expected. Open forum. Schedule the next meeting. Dave suggested that we set up a regular date for a meeting, like going through the spring. And if we need to change it, that's okay. We might be able to, at least we'll have a spot, and
Okay.
trade it off with somebody, but at least you'll hold one instead of finding somebody in your room, later on. So it does Wednesdays at 7 work for everyone, or Thursday work better? Or any idea at this point? I think Wednesday works for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, Wednesday works.
Okay, so I'm
Yep.
going to request Wednesdays going forward, and then when we involve folks like Rob or Jessica, we'll be looking at their calendars too, I guess. So we'll see what happens. So scheduling next meeting would be a Wednesday next month. in a way, there's some pressure off us, because I was expecting to, with the next couple of meetings, get into the next Green Communities grant thing, but we're not going to now.
Yeah, and that's not gonna happen.
Nope. All right, so we've got, the 4th is too close to the long weekend, so can we go the 11th?
Yeah, Yeah.
And could we go the second Wednesday of each month?
As far as I know, it should be okay.
yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Right now, that's going to be the September 11th. Yeah. Any further questions or input in this meeting? May I have a motion to adjourn? Kathy?
Yeah, I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
All right, thank you. And seconded,
I'll second that.
all in favor, Mike,
Aye.
Kathy,
Yeah, I.
in favor, Ron in favor. We are adjourned at 7:50.